All right, Rick, we're going to rip through these players from around the league, guys that we talked about for months and months leading up to the draft. So give me, we got 10 minutes. So you give me your shortish answers about these guys, unless you have something to say. That's a little longer. I'd imagine this first player you're going to talk for 10 minutes on solely, but let's get started with your guy, Bryce Young, named QB1. We'll start in the preseason opener. Are you all surprised that Frank Reich, the first-year coach in Carolina, has Bryce as his starting quarterback?
No, not especially if you move up in the draft to get him. And I know the mental makeup on this kid and the maturity of this kid, and just reading some of the clips on him, and then how he walks into that huddle, and even the vets are listening to him and commanding the attention, which is pretty rare for a rookie quarterback, but that's your team leader. And sounded like the other day at practice, just talking to some people, he had a bad day, or the offense didn't have a great of day as they've had in the past. And he gathered everybody up like he's been there 5 or 6 years as a veteran quarterback, and kind of rallied the troops a little bit. So all the makings of a franchise quarterback, except for the height. I'm anxious to see him play in the first preseason game.
Because what does he weigh?
203 pounds.
203. That's what he weighs. Hey, let me ask you this in terms of talking to all three of these quarterbacks during the draft process. I don't know. How can I phrase this? Who struck you as the best leader in terms of temperament and handling everything that comes to being a franchise quarterback? Was it Bryce? Was it Mac Jones? Was it Tua? All the guys that came out of Alabama consecutively.
I would say Bryce.
Yeah.
Yeah, just because of the maturity level and the ability.
Because he's not a rah-rah guy. He just tells you how it is.
His demeanor and mannerisms, you don't have to be a rah-rah guy. You just have that aura about you.
Right.
Like when you're around him, he comes across almost as, I won't say soft-spoken, but there's a sense that he's in command. But you don't have to be a rah-rah yeller and screamer.
Well, because there are quarterbacks that we talked to through the pre-draft process that felt like they were trying to act the way that they were expected to act. And Bryce, you didn't get that sense.
No, I did. Bryce Young, I didn't.
Right. You said it, not me. All right. Another quarterback that we actually grew to like during the pre-draft process, who's having a pretty good run of things here early in training camp, C.J. Stroud, second overall pick of the Houston Texans. Multiple days taking all first-team reps. Of course, they drafted Davis Mills in round 3 a few years ago. I feel like you're starting C.J. Stroud, but are we there yet at that point in the conversation?
I think that's what the move. That's why they make this type of move. They want to start to get him ready as quickly as they can. If he was struggling up to that point, they may not have pushed it, but I think that he is physically more gifted. And it was funny, I was watching some of the DBs in our future podcast on defensive backs.
Yep.
Watching Penn State, watching some of the other, and some of the throws that he made, CJ Stroud, you go back and you forget how good a quarterback this kid is. Right. Now, it was the mental part of it, but he seems to be catching on. So they're going to start force feeding him, giving him the number one reps to get him ready for the opener. And it seems like everything they're throwing at him, that he's been able to handle.
So Bryce and CJ were the first two quarterbacks taken. The 10th quarterback taken, Dorian Thompson-Robinson. And I went back and looked at my notes before the Hall of Fame game on Thursday night. And the first thing I wrote down is a tough player who will bust his ass to block for his teammates. Good athlete. He moves well in the pocket, has to improve accuracy and decision-making, but sometimes doesn't throw with a lot of anticipation to tight windows. So we saw all those things in the Hall of Fame game. I thought he had a good game, and clearly he's going to be the backup to Deshaun Watson. Is there a chance that he could overtake Josh Dobbs or even Kellen Mond for the number 2 job?
I think so. The way that he showed up in that game, now it was a Hall of Fame game. It was the second half. You know, he's playing against the rest of the Yardbirds out there.
Yardbirds.
That may not make an NFL roster. So, but to come out and have to, first impressions make a very good impression. What he was able to do on that Hall of Fame game. So it'll be interesting to see how he continues to. He'll get more and more reps in the preseason. It'll be interesting to see if he can continue to show what he showed in that Hall of Fame game.
More impressive, DeJuan Jones, who was a grown man out there. He blocked out the sun, which we knew he could do. Didn't look winded. He played a lot of snaps. I think you have to be pretty ecstatic about his performance if you're the Browns.
Yeah, no, he played well. Looks like he got in shape. He had the one holding call on the screen down the field, but other than that, he was pretty impressive. So it'll be interesting to see how he continues. But just remember, it's good first impressions, but sometimes a leopard doesn't change his spots.
You're really concerned about this hamburger habit.
About him.
All right. Well, we'll see. Good first start for him, though, so that's great. I mentioned Dorian Thompson-Robinson was the 10th out of 14 quarterbacks taken. A young man, there we go. A few quarterbacks before him. A surprise to a lot of people. I think you were surprised too. I know I was. Stetson Bennett, and he is a 38-year-old rookie. He's not 38. He's been around forever, but he's had a good camp with Los Angeles. We know that Matthew Stafford's going to be the guy there. Brett Rippon's also in camp. Stetson has a chance to be the number 2 guy there, right?
Yeah. Well, Rippon's just a guy, in my opinion.
Okay.
But he's experienced. He's been on a big stage. He's performed well on the big stage. So I imagine jumping to the NFL is not a huge jump for him as far as being under the bright lights and performing under the bright lights. So I'm anxious to watch him during preseason and see how he performs. But a lot, even like last year, remember Skylar Thompson at Miami came in and had a very good preseason, and everybody was crowning him the king of the future down there. And then sometimes you come back to reality when the real games start.
Right. And goes back to your original point at the top of the podcast about you can dominate training camp, even a preseason game, but NFL regular season isn't like college. It's going to be a huge learning curve. One player that I would expect to have 0 in terms of learning curve is Bijan Robinson, the 8th overall pick, listed as a running back. Debo, I don't know if you're able to show the Twitter clip you put into the rundown. I don't know if that's legal or not, but if so, it just shows that Bijan's going to be more than a running back. We talked about Jahmyr Gibbs as being obviously the Christian McCaffrey of this draft class. I think Bijan is going to impress a lot of people, Rick, with his ability to run routes and catch the ball coming out of the backfield and giving Des Ridder even another weapon. So I'll ask you the question again. We got Drake London. We got Kyle Pitts. We got Bijan Robinson. Des Ridder has to step up.
Yeah, and he's got playmakers around him. They were able to run the ball last year, so it's not going to be him throwing the ball all over the yard 45, 50 times a game, but he does have playmakers around him, all young, all are going to mature and grow together. So it may not look the same at the beginning of the season as it does at the end of the season. By that, I think they're going to continue to improve as the season goes along. But we'll find out a lot about Desmond Ridder this year, and he's the future of the Atlanta Falcons.
So if you're watching on YouTube, this is a clip I was talking about with Bijan. It's from Falcaholic Kevin, if you're on Twitter. I mean, I would imagine that's a linebacker trying to cover him, but he put his foot in the ground, and that's a wrap right there. I mean, and you have to be excited about that if you're.
That's why they drafted him, not as a running back, but as an offensive weapon.
Yeah.
There's a prime example of that, working out of the slot, getting matched up with a linebacker, and that linebacker, I don't care who it is, has no chance.
Except for Micah Parsons, maybe. I'm afraid of Micah Parsons, so he can do anything he says he can do. But yeah, that's obviously going to be a big part of that offense. All right. Another potential big part of an offense is in New York with the Giants. Jalen Hyatt, 3rd-round pick. We talked about him as possibly a late first-round buzz. Had a chance to chat with him at the combine. I liked his, to use a Rick word, his grit. Rick, you had concerns about the pre-draft process about why there was only 1 year productivity. The other side for me was, well, he took advantage of the opportunity. He's taken advantage of the opportunity so far in New York. I think they're going to be a much improved offense even after last year with Brian Daboll as Danny Dimes continues to grow into that role. They drafted your guy, John Michael Schmitz, to play center. He's going to start there. But at wide receiver, they have Hodgins, who they got from the practice squad, I believe, in Buffalo. They have Darius Slayton. But Jalen Hyatt, who is an absolute burner and has been tearing up camp, has a chance to be that sort of Mike Wallace run 9 routes type guy early on. And I would imagine you think he's going to have that sort of impact in terms of affecting defenses early on.
Yeah, and don't forget they traded for Waller.
And, the best player on the team, Darren Waller, by the way.
And Paris Campbell. So, and they'll be interested to see if Robinson and Shepard come off or when they come off. So I think they definitely improved that receiver room. But everything is, showing signs that he's going to give them that explosive playmaker down the field that they were missing. So I'll be excited. I'm heading out here in about 20 minutes at the most to see Detroit and the Giants practice against each other the next 2 days.
Oh, great. All right.
It'll be exciting to see a lot of these rookies that Detroit has, because they're going to be a lot of impact guys for Detroit, and a lot of rookies are going to get a significant play time. And it'll be interesting to see Hyatt and Banks and all those guys, the rookies up there. The other interesting thing is I want to see if Thibodeau, we were talking about Trayvon Walker making a jump. Let's see.
Yeah.
Anxious to see Thibodeau go up against who I think is a very underrated, but maybe one of the better offensive lines in the league is the Detroit Lions. And so Penny Sewell against Thibodeau should be fun matchup to watch up there.
I don't know if they're underrated, Rick. They're a really good offensive line, but I take your point. All right, let's talk about the Seahawks, who have absolutely crushed the draft. Jackson Smith-Njigba has been balling out. DK Metcalf said he looks like he's already been here for 2-3 years with the way he runs his routes. We knew he was a great route runner, and the way he's picked up this offense. Devin Witherspoon, who was the 5th overall pick, the cornerback. I was talking about him on HQ last week, and he is mouthing off and making plays, which is basically what the scouting report was on him, helping out in the run, breaking up pass plays down the field. You got to be pretty excited about these two players if you're John Schneider and Pete Carroll.
Yeah, just like last year's class, I think these two are going to have a major impact. So it's nice to have 2 first-round picks this year again to add to what they already were able to accomplish last year in the draft. And there is no question. The question was Smith-Njigba didn't play much last year because of the hamstring. But there's no question, if you go back, that you can almost argue he may not be as fast as Olave or Wilson.
Yeah,
but he is just as productive and maybe a better route runner than any of them.
All right, let's talk about one more guy. I won't let you talk about Will Anderson this podcast. You already spoke highly of him. But let's go to Minnesota and talk about another guy we like, Jordan Addison. They drafted him to help fill the role of Adam Thielen, who is now in Carolina. Obviously, he's going to play opposite Justin Jefferson. Kirk Cousins he catches a lot of guff, but he's probably one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the NFL. I think he currently leads active quarterbacks in completion percentage, if I recall correctly. How much spillover can Jordan Addison expect with all the attention that Justin Jefferson's going to get?
Yeah, he's going to get a lot of, I think, balls thrown his way. They still have playmakers. I mean, still defenses have to worry about TJ Hawkinson as well.
Yep.
But Jordan Addison's another very talented route runner, excellent hands. Probably would have went higher if he ran faster.
4.47 is slow apparently.
Yeah, for a guy that's a little bit undersized.
Yeah.
So, but if he ran as fast as he drives his car sometimes.
Oh boy, there it is. So I'm noticing that he's not listed as a returner. Is that by design? Because he excelled as a returner.
Okay. They got Rager there. So they have a couple of returners, and the kid we drafted, a running back out of Iowa State a few years ago, as a kickoff returner that's had a pretty productive career as a kickoff returner. But Addison was injured most of OTAs and minicamp, didn't practice much, so there wasn't a lot of buzz about him. And then training camp came around, and I think that he'll definitely have an impact with the Vikings this year, especially with everybody getting their attention on Justin Jefferson and probably TJ Hawkinson. And so if he can step up and make plays, then that's going to help alleviate some of the pressures of Justin Jefferson getting triple teamed is probably which will probably happen until Addison steps up.
All right, Rick,